So today we have two presentations. First of all, thank you all for being here. My name is Paloma Avila. I'm the Programs and Development Manager at Arlington Garden in Pasadena. Arlington Garden is a public botanical garden that was made by the community of the surrounding neighborhoods in Pasadena. It is made on Caltrans property that was an empty lot for 45 years and is now a 3-acre garden. To center us on the conversation today, we are joined by folks from the different communities that are centered around what would have been the 710 corridor, communities that would have been devastated by the building of this freeway, but now are able to think of the future and envision it in a way that doesn't involve separating communities and doing damage to us as people and our land. I'm coming from Altadena, which is really close to Cajamarca, on this land that is unceded land of the Tongva, Gabrieleno, or Quiche people. When I think of the 710 North Corridor, I think of Cajamarca along the Arroyo Seco, coming down to downtown LA of the city of Yagna, or the village, the gathering place of Yagna in downtown. And we have people coming from Pasadena, South Pasadena, El Sereno, Alhambra, and a lot of those conversations are going to be centered around this area tonight. So first we have a presentation. Yes, people, please tell me where you're coming from in the chat. From the nonprofit Coyote Macehualli, from Brenda and Micah, who will be giving us a short presentation on what they're doing to help in the land of El Sereno and inspire us on what we can do too. So take it away.
Okay, thank you for having us, Paloma. So let me see, let me start playing this. Okay, cool. So I'm Brenda Contreras. This is my partner, Micah Surgian.
Hello.
We're part of Coyote and Macehualli, and we're excited to be to be part of Beyond Freeways, Reconnecting Nature Neighborhoods. This slide is just a little bit about who we are. Let me minimize this. Sorry. Can you minimize this so I can read this whole thing? Okay, anyway, we're based out of Huchunga, which is El Sereno, place of roses. Can you all see the text there, or is it? Okay, I wasn't sure. Okay, yeah, so the meaning behind our name, it's Nahuatl, and it means coyote or city person and indigenous person. And we started organizing back in 2019 here in El Sereno, and it was against destructive luxury home developments on open hillsides. And ultimately, that organizing led to us forming a nonprofit because we had to go forward and file some lawsuits. And so we used the nonprofit, which was formed in February 2021, as a tool to be able to protect ourselves and community members. And so we're autonomous, we're community-led, we oppose settler colonialism economy, and we're also interested in building coalitions with other groups. And you can find us every other Sunday at the corner of Eastern and Lombardi. We tend to the land there and also have like coffee and food and talk about what's going on in El Sereno. The next slide. Okay, yeah, so we're going to be talking about native plant species, wildlife corridors, and the future. So we're not going to go too deep into the past. That's the whole presentation in itself. This presentation is focused on the present and the future, but we acknowledge that what got us here were settler colonial policies and ideologies, also lack of connection to the land, and removal of the original peoples as caretakers. This area is once a watershed, and destructive practices, including damming and building concrete channels, drastically changed the biodiversity of this area. So our work has centered itself around native plants and their teachings, Their existence holds the key to reverse much of the destruction that has happened on this land. So native plants provide food, can regenerate soil, stop erosion, are fire resistant, and help bring all sorts of biodiversity back to our damaged land. In the slides, we have coffee berry and the arroyo lupin. Right now, the arroyo lupin's in bloom, and they're both great for pollinating. The coffee berry provides food, is fire resistant. The lupin brings nitrogen back to the soil, helps with erosion.
Yeah, and so now I want to talk a little bit about the Southern California black walnut tree, which has kind of been at the center of our legal struggles, actually. And that's because, unfortunately, though it is a state recognized rare and threatened species, the city of Los Angeles isn't really doing much to protect the species. In fact, there's been a study that just came out by the Urban Wildlands group that states that the city of Los Angeles grants the removal of one mature black walnut tree per week in the last 3 years. And this is a map here on the screen that was part of that study. And you could see in the yellow highlighted area that, there is a large concentration of black walnuts right in this 710 corridor. And this is a species that, really only exists in this part of the world. It's endemic to Southern California, and it has all sorts of benefits for wildlife in our lands. And we want to, part of our mission is to really try to help protect it and restore this species before it becomes endangered, because instead of waiting for it to become an official endangered plant, we need to start protecting it now. And part of that struggle is the developments that have been happening around El Sereno, Northeast Los Angeles, and even throughout all of LA, where people are removing the trees and not properly mitigating for their loss. So part of our efforts, we want to propose like a Southern California Black Walnut Tree Day, which would help bring awareness to the need to protect the tree. And during August and September is when all the walnuts start to ripen and are ready for harvest. So I think it'd be great to have an event around that time of year and just really bring awareness and help advocate to get stronger protections for the tree. Next slide.
Okay.
And really quick, in relation to the 710 corridor, I just kind of wanted to bring up a point that we've been starting to explore a little more as our urban tree canopy cover. We want to, our mission is, to help protect the environment, and part of that is actual like streets that we all live and walk and breathe on, and we want to make sure that we're creating sustainable urban forests. And as you can see in this picture, palm trees are not sustainable street trees to have because they're very fragile. And in the last windstorm, this one fell down right on my neighbor's house. And another popular street tree is down there, Eastern Avenue in El Sereno, is this group of ficus trees, which actually provides a lot of benefits because they're very mature, beautiful trees. However, they do cause issues with the sidewalks, and once they're coming towards the end of the life, the city is not properly maintaining them. They're doing something that's called tree topping, which really damages the trees and causes them to be more brittle and likely to break. So I know part of the 710 plan, we're envisioning street tree plans as part of that, I believe, and that's just something I wanted to point out to keep in mind. The community really needs to have a say in promoting native species and sustainable species that we can use. And another thing that's come up in our struggles is kind of identifying these wildlife corridors that these little pockets of open space actually serve as for wildlife. Now this picture is of one of the sites we're fighting for, which is the Moffett Street Extension Hill, which is the little space right where the arrow points. But as you can see, there's like a direct green line. We put a yellow line over it, but that's all greenery there that connects directly to the Elephant Hill open space. And wildlife is using that, you know, on a daily basis because it's really important for them to have a place to move to and from shelter and thrive off these natural ecosystems that exist there. And these spaces, you know, exist in and around the 710 corridor. So it's important for us to be protecting these little open pockets. Yeah, I think that's all I have to say for this slide. So.
Okay. So for the future, we want to continue activating spaces. So that's kind of what our approach has been. So we have these lawsuits where we're holding the city and developers accountable for the destruction they're trying to get away with. But on the other end, you know, how can we do something like directly right now? So that has been activating spaces. We do guerrilla gardenings with native plant species. These right here are not any pictures of the guerrilla gardenings. These have all existed. So starting on the left, that's Elephant Hill, and then going clockwise, this is Moffett.
Yeah.
And Moffett, and then also Moffett Street. So the black walnut on the top, and then the lupin on the bottom. So those are all existing naturally, but we want to help those thrive. So removing invasives is really important. Just making sure like they have the best possible success rate. And another thing that we want to do with these open spaces is remove them from the speculative market. And so one of our partnerships is actually with the El Sereno Community Land Trust, where we recognize like these areas that are targets for luxury home developments, and the El Sereno Community Land Trust has been backing us up, saying we are interested in taking this off the speculative market and into the hands of community. So this is one approach to fighting for these open spaces, you know, acting right now by activating the spaces, regenerating, because that's invaluable. Even if like in a year or two from now, it does get developed, it's still super vital to have that time period of the different generations that were able to flourish on this land. That every moment is really precious and it really counts. So the next person up, I think, is the land trust. So that's it for us. I'll stop sharing the screen. How do I stop sharing? Oh my God, we're having like.
While they're doing that, my name is Angela Flores. I'm going to be representing the El Sereno Community Land Trust. Let me go ahead and screen share.
Pretty sure we stopped sharing.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So this is a presentation I always just kind of do in classrooms, but the right to determine our future, fighting for autonomy and tenants' rights at the local level. Also, fighting for land as we're in these times of climate change. I am, just to give you background, I am a community activist and artist. And I mean, before I move on, I want to make sure that you all know I tend to give more of a background history on my personal story. Because as just a way of tying in Coyote Macehualli work and the UCT work, because myself and some other folks, including my father, are at the intersection of a lot of these socioeconomic issues, as well as like groups and organizations. So I think I have like 10 to 15 minutes, and I will do the very best I can to be quick and engaging. So the first slide is like one of the earliest photos of El Sereno, aka Ochunga, Tongva land. And it's a photo of the first people who weren't Tongva, an Italian family, the Bats family, who had sheep herd. This is dug up by the El Sereno Historical Society. I just thought I'd throw that in there. So I'm one of the co-founders and co-facilitators of the Eastside Cafe space, an autonomous space inspired by the Zapatistas, a population of indigenous people that rose up against their government in Mexico in 1994. I'm also a Caltrans tenant. Me and my family have been tenants for the last 30 years under Caltrans, an institution that's supposed to construct roads, and instead they are, quote, the worst slumlord in all of California. And I'm also a co-founder of the United Caltrans Tenant Movement. And so this is our little humble space located in El Sereno, Chunga, symbolically located on the route of the 710 freeway. If the freeway would have gone through, our space would have been in the way. And we intentionally did that because we would have resisted. And I'm glad the freeway is no longer being planned to go through. So the Eastside Cafe was founded by a lot of people, professors, artists, students, activists, and Caltrans tenants. A lot of people who were seeking justice, a lot of people who wanted a change, wanted a different world. We are in our 20th year. It's our 20th anniversary in May. And 20 years ago, we didn't have any spaces like this. We didn't have, and maybe still don't. And so I think that we really wanted to have this community cultural hub, a space for political discourse on social issues, anywhere from housing to immigrant to LGBTQIA to femicide to anti-Blackness, you name it, we've had it. And we also understood very deeply that we needed a space for BIPOC folks and a space for healing and self-preservation, as a lot of these issues stem from colonialism, and Brenda and Micah bring it up really well, settler colonial economies and how it's just devastating our communities right now. So we house collectives during the week that offer classes on arts, culture, yoga. We have weekend events. We have mercados. We have community residents rent out the space, etc. And so when we started the Eastside Cafe in 2001, we would meet at my house, the Caltrans home, in the very first year. My father, Roberto Flores, is an activist and traveled to Chiapas, Mexico to be a human rights observer at the Zapatista uprising. And when he came back, I'd say he absorbed a lot of information on horizontality, on self-determination, on collectivism, on what it means to be a village, you know, to go back to those types of value sets, and to really acknowledge the land, and to reconnect a relationship with it. I'd say like hundreds of people showed up at our home who were seeking mentorship and guidance. And, you know, that's when we wanted to create, you know, something, a collective. And so we were a collective before we were actual space. And a part of those people, co-founding folks, was, again, Caltrans tenants, because they were seeking justice, you know, housing justice, and to hold Caltrans accountable. Caltrans is this like impenetrable like institution. Nobody has held them accountable, and it's so infuriating. And so let's see. So this is definitely a David and Goliath situation. This is Caltrans headquarters in the heart of downtown LA. In the 1960s, Caltrans purchased property, and I'm sure, I feel like a lot of you already know this. I'm just kind of like reiterating, but they purchased properties throughout 3 cities, El Sereno, South Pass, and Pasadena, to extend the 710. and within 4 decades proved to be your typical slumlord, deceptive slumlord that's profited off of so many of us tenants, and had developed this abusive relationship, which again they felt like they weren't accountable for. Um, a lot of the tenants feared of retaliation as they aged, so there's a lot of tenants who were silenced and, couldn't say anything. My family, for sure, we've been witness to so many of our neighbors and friends and just families who fall victim to Caltrans constant harassment, evictions, lack of maintenance, just pure negligence. And it's very angering. What we're seeing are a lot of tenants right now aging and passing away with no real housing justice. As soon as the late 60s and 70s, there's been a history of No on 710 freeway activism. And we all slowly became, I think that in the beginnings, it's like you buy a home, the American dream, you protect and you want to be able to provide for your family. But then we all saw the injustices and the violations Caltrans was doing and became these environmental activists. We knew the repercussions of having a freeway, especially for Latino families. Like we've seen it in East LA and Boyle Heights. It's fracturing the communities, it's tearing us apart, it's making people move away from LA because maybe just also the cost of living and had increased, and it still continues to increase. And it meant polluting the environment in low income areas. So right here, this next picture is a picture of an exhaust pipe that would have been in Valley next to Griefels, and that was proposed. It's a rendering that Caltrans had proposed to have instead of an on-surface freeway. They were actually at some point proposing an underground freeway. And so all three cities fought so hard to reject those proposals, especially in these times of climate change. And so just fast forward to 2017, were threatened with gentrification and displacement when the owner sold the entire building to a buyer. And so we were dealing with two landlords. We were dealing with Caltrans and now this landlord. And we knew what that meant. We knew that it was going to destroy everything that we had built. And we had to intervene, and we protested this new buyer. And he got afraid and was like, okay, I'm going to give you 10 days to purchase the building. And we took those 10 days. We worked really hard, and we were able to raise $200,000 from the larger LA community because they believed in a lot of the work that we've done in terms of autonomy and self-determination. And so when we bought the building, finally, we had a bona fide offer. We are still in relationship with CORE, community-owned real estate. We don't have a 501c3, we're an autonomous space. And so CORE had wanted to help and support, so they are like the fiscal sponsor, but also co-owners. And we felt like all of a sudden we were the landlords, and it didn't really sit well with us because only just a few of us were these like landlords, and felt like we gotta do something where we can pass this building to the community and no developers whatsoever. So we created a land trust, the Eastside Cafe members, that would be separate from the Eastside Cafe. So what is a land trust? Land Trust is a nonprofit organization that seeks to maintain the affordability of housing and in some cases non-housing buildings, which is us, and land uses in perpetuity by removing land from the speculative real estate market. So in perpetuity means forever, or 100 years, and then when the 100 years is up, you can renew it. And then just some background information on CLTs. There's over 240 CLTs in the U.S. It's not just something that's created by people in northern California, by hippies. It's happening everywhere, and the first CLT was made in the 50s, I believe. The 3 roles of community land trust is empowerment. You want to have enough courage to get your neighbors and your the people involved have enough courage to start up the land trust, which is like your articles of incorporation, your bylaws. You want to create a board. It's collective ownership. You all have the responsibility to work out all those details, and the governance process, as well as stewardship, taking care of the land and preserving it for future generations. This is a map of the current CLTs right now in LA. So there's something called LA Clt Coalition, and it's a group of CLTs that got together and in 2020 when everything just went downhill with the housing crisis. And we quickly formed and just started meeting. So the first one you see in red is us, the Sereno Community Land Trust. We're over here. Can you guys see my browser? Yeah, right here. We have the purple Fideicomiso, which is in Boyle Heights. Liberty, no geographic boundaries. Beverly, Vermont, the turquoise, which is like Koreatown, Hollywood, Silver Lake. Trust South LA, South Central, and then emerging CLTs, the CLTs that are creating right now and in that experimental phase, which includes Chinatown, Pacoima Beautiful in San Fernando Valley, Social Justice Learning in Inglewood, Long Beach Forward in Long Beach, and Making Housing Happen in Pasadena. And then lastly, who are the folks that create the CLT? Who are the decision makers? So within our membership, we have to make sure it's divided into thirds. So a third is the tenants of the housing or the multifamily apartments. So those tenants are involved as members. The other third is the people who live in the community. So residents. In our case, it's anyone who lives in El Sereno. And the other third is stakeholders, people who work in El Sereno. They don't live, or they're not the tenants, they just work there. And so that's pretty much it. Like Brenda was saying, we work closely with Coyote Macehualli in making sure that we do our best to provide like leveraging the 501c3 and hopefully obtaining the land that they're fighting for and protecting, as well as supporting UCT and the tenants with Tim. And that is it for me.
Thank you so much. Thank you everyone for presenting. Now we are able to go into 3 different breakout rooms, and you're all welcome to join us in each room. We're going to be talking about 3 different topics. So I'm going to have Tim and Marcus introduce yourselves and then say what you'll be discussing. And first of all, my name is Paloma again, and in my breakout room, we're going to be discussing envisioning land use along the corridor. Tim, you want to say?
Yeah, sure. I'm Tim Iverson. I'm a Caltrans tenant in Pasadena. I actually live right next to Arlington Gardens. And I teach urban and design history at Art Center. And my breakout room is going to be about Caltrans tenants going in. We can discuss a little bit more who we are and our place in the corridor, but also what's happening with the sales program and how the role of current tenants might be changing in the next few years. But then also maybe, I mean, if we have time, we can also talk about the very large piece of land north of us, which is the ditch, which has a lot of implications for affordable housing and other kinds of tenants in Pasadena.
And my name is Marcus Renner. I'm a Pasadena native, community organizer, and working on a project called Arroyo Seco Placekeepers, which is exploring the role of story and performance in community-based conservation, and have a kind of a long history with the Arroyo and working around the Arroyo Seco area. And Paloma invited me to help tonight with the facilitation. So we'll be talking about the public, kind of envisioning the public process, sharing information on what we know about the process for making decisions about these spaces, and then outlining kind of what we would like and how we might get there.
Great. So every breakout room, we're going to be together for 20 minutes, and you are free to choose which breakout room you want to be in. And feel free to switch around too if you'd like.